What I want to say at this point is to say that the battle is not just whether or not we're going to allow, it's not a matter of allowing freedom of religion or freedom of conscience for gay, lesbian, and so on, or for Muslims. They're not looking for just that. If that's what it was, we've had that for a while here, and that's accepted here in America. But what they're wanting is for no one, and if you do so, they're not calling for on the thoughts yet, thought crimes, but we do have hate crime laws that punish only the thoughts because it just gives an extra, but you have to commit some kind of a crime to have hate crime laws. But the push is to, as with the bakery thing, it wasn't, they couldn't just say, we'll sell them the cakes. They said, we're not going to come there and cater the deal, and we're not going to be part of a ceremony that we believe is a sin, and we don't want to be part of that. And so their push is that. The Muslim push is not just for them to have their freedom of religion. They want to be able to cut off their head. For them to use Sharia law within the United States, which means you can beat your wife or I want to be honest, and I haven't heard any of them say that it's okay to kill the infidel, you know. But to allow them to do so, and the argument is you can live your religion as long as it doesn't violate the laws of the United States, as long as it doesn't violate our supreme law, the Constitution, which says no cruel and unusual punishment, and so on and so on. But that's not enough for them. They want that. Yes.
Why don't we get the state out of the marriage business altogether?
Yeah.
And let that be between the two people in the church or however they want to do it. I know they say it has to do with federal taxes, but I think that can somehow be overcome.
Property rights.
There's a lot of things to be said about that. I believe that in a lot of ways we've gotten to that point. Most states nowadays, you don't even have to have a justice of the peace. Here in Texas, you don't have to get married by someone with a license. You don't have to get married by someone who says that they have the power. All you have to do is to say that the statute here in Texas says that you just have to believe that if whoever it is marries you, that you're married. Other states, all you have to do is just say we're married, you know, and so we have, as far as marriage itself is concerned.
In the state of Alaska, you can marry one person, just anybody can marry one person, can marry a couple at one time. The state of Alaska, anybody can do it.
Well, anybody can do it here in Texas as many times as they want. And it's legal. Yes.
How many people cohabit?
Pardon?
Without marriage? How many couples cohabit without marriage?
Yes, we don't, nobody enforces adultery laws anymore, and we don't enforce, because of Obergefell, we don't enforce our sodomy laws anymore, anal and oral sex, because if you let two men be married, those laws are out. The DOMA laws, this was struck down, but not for the right reason. These are all struck down now because you can't discriminate on the basis they have found, the Supreme Court has found a fundamental right in the Constitution for same-sex marriage, and so those are out the window now. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was going to say about, there has been some talk about getting states, government in general out of marriage. I read an interesting thing that brought up a point I hadn't thought about. It said that in the reason that the state, I don't mean any particular state, like government has an interest in protecting people in marriage, because if there is no government oversight or regulation of it, that it leads to harm to the individuals, especially the women doing it, because people, if the state is not saying, well, you've got to do it publicly, you've got to register, et cetera, that sometimes you could have people subject to just whatever the rules of their little. They use the example of, suppose somebody belongs to some extremist religious group, and if they have total control over the marriage, then that could actually harm people. I think we've kind of seen that maybe with the concept behind Sharia law, where it's the religion, say, or that small community, unfettered by any outside influences and everything, could actually something that would be harmful to people. Also, it protects the children, the offspring of a marriage, preventing them from, they're not disappeared, you know, they actually have some legal status if the parents are legally married. And so they pointed out that in some level, that the government actually has an interest in protecting its citizens in this institution. I had thought of that, you know, I was saying, yeah, we can get government out of it.
We said a bunch of different things, and we won't try to cover them all, but yes, there are a lot of laws like the inheritance laws that are, the states have to have inheritance laws, and the states have said, no, we don't want to allow. They've said in the past, this has gone by the wayside now, but in this last year, but they've said with the DOMA Act, they tried to do with that, and they tried to say, we have inheritance laws to protect the women, and we don't want someone to come in from Massachusetts that are two men that are married, and they both have equal earning power, and so on, and we don't want to have them to be able to designate this is the one, this is the wife, and so on. It doesn't fit within our inheritance laws here, and yet those things have gone by the wayside because of just the decisions that have been made in the last year or two. There are things, this wasn't in America, this was in England, but I just read about the judge who said that Christians cannot, he judged in his courtroom that Christians cannot foster children. They can't have foster children because he said they might infect them with their Christian beliefs. Well, in America, you know, we resent that. But but maybe if there's someone else, maybe they were Muslim or some a religion you disagree with, you might be tempted to say we don't want them to be infected with Muslim beliefs. And yet in America, we allow people to believe. That's what freedom of religion and freedom of conscience and freedom of thought and agency is all about. And then to answer to God later. But in America, as long as they don't violate someone's life, harm someone's life, liberty, or property, then they're free to think and believe and be bigots and be selfish and so on. But to actually ask to allow them to carry out Sharia law that's going to violate constitutional protections, or to make us participate in their, and that's what the battle is all about.
Well, they took the ability of those nuns to adopt children out up on the East Coast. The Catholic Church was doing it. I mean, the nuns were doing it. They had and the government says you can't do it anymore because they would not adopt those children out to same-sex couples and things like that. So
this political correctness and political incorrectness is so one-sided that it's Christians and Jews are not allowed to do, and yet we're so intolerant, or we're so tolerant in America, because they were so open-minded that surprising your brains don't fall out, that we're so tolerant that we allow them, and yet we go along with this thing to allow our Constitution and our state laws and so on to be overcome. What can we do about it? Let me just say a few things here, and then I'd like to hear from you all the time. But
go to the Second Amendment. That's what we do.
Well, we could. I mean, that's but short of the Second Amendment, which is you know, I'm not against them, but yes, against our government. If our government's gone so far there that our religious freedoms are being sacrificed.
You know Walter Williams,
You bet.
the college.
Yeah.
When he came to do the Distinguished Lecture Series, I paid the big bucks to go talk to him. And I was so proud of being part of Glenn Beck's march when we were on 828 in Washington, standing there with 1 million other Christians and things. And I asked him what he thought of it, and the Tea Party going there, and he said, "You made one mistake." I said, "Yes, sir, what was that?" He said, "You didn't take your guns." I said, "Are you serious?" He said, "I'm serious. You should have all taken your guns." I mean, and that came from Walter Williams.
I want to be, but I don't disagree with him. I'm not saying we should have fired on Washington D.C. with it, but I am saying that it is. If we had some national leader who would lead us, and you know, and could get enough people to support him, and go back to Washington D.C. and say we will have our Constitution, our laws. You know, civil disobedience and rebellion is unbecoming citizens who are protected in their unalienable rights. But when we're not protected in our unalienable rights, then it is our right and our responsibility to do something about it, and eventually to alter and abolish that government. It's certainly getting near that point. We're getting real close in that direction. What can we do about it? Well, first of all, we can become informed, be aware of the issues and so on in our community and so on, and then in our individual capacities, we can work with others who are, that have commitment to religious freedom and to work side by side. I'm glad that George got me involved in this thing here, because I tend to, like I think many of us do, we have our own personal lives, we've got our families and our church and so on. We don't get outside of that. And yet this religious freedom war, or battles, if you want to call them that, are bringing together people of all faiths that are threatened now. Thirdly, I think these things may sound mundane, but I think they're awfully important. We can live our lives, in such a way that we can be a good example of what we believe. How we live our religion is much more important than what we say about our religion. We all know that. And Christ has said that we should let our light so shine. Well, some of our light is dim, but the light that we're to hold up is Jesus Christ. And we should be doing what we can. We're all trying to do better. I mean, we're in the process somewhere, and we're trying to do better. In the meantime, we need to do what we can with other people of good to stand for these things. And I know that that's a real generalization, but it's something you're to be, congratulated. Y'all are out here trying, and then saying, what we do, and Doc's over there doing his deal, and Randy McDonald's doing his deal, and y'all are doing your deal, and others of you that I don't know what you're doing, but people are doing things within their families, within their churches, within their spheres of influence to do whatever they can. I think we can be a good, faithful example of our religions. This is short of fighting the battles. I mean, getting out there and arguing with people, or we can be civil in our discourse. I think we have to be. This is something that's been hard for me in my life. I grew up thinking I got to fight, I got to be sarcastic and mean and destroy someone else. And with my logic or name calling is a temptation to do what the other side is doing, using every false form of logic, ad hominem attacks and straw men and smoke screens and guilt by association and just outright lies. The father of lies is in his heyday right now. We live in a world of lies, and you and I need to, number one, live the truth ourselves, learn how to articulate the truth and make distinctions between things, and trust that other people of good-hearted people will be swayed by that. You and I, we respond to someone. You respond to Alan West when he stands up and says things, or Walter Williams, most of the time. Don't always agree with everything, but don't agree with everyone here. And we can be an advocate for freedom and morality and so on. I skipped over, but we're out of time here. I just mentioned four quick things that have happened here that really have changed America. And one was, we have the Bible in our languages here and so on, so that the common laborer and plowboy in England can read in America and can understand the Bible. And then we've got the English common law and the U.S. Constitution. Sir Edward Coke, that he wrote a written consolidation. England just had common law. They didn't have it written down. And we've codified most of it here in America, but he wrote that down, and it became the basis and had a tremendous impact here in America. The scientific achievements from 1815 to 1850 or so, 45, the advances in communication and science just exploded here in America with the spirit of freedom and the spirit of it was the freedom. It was our free economic system, as well as our allowing people. And fourth, a return to Judeo-Christian moral principles, which has happened here. Okay, I'm going to stop there. We're running short of time here. Just some of y'all would like to respond to the question, what can we do about it? I'm not ready to go have the war yet. I am ready to go force. Yes.
One of the things I think is we should be open-minded, realize that we have to stand our ground, but we also have to negotiate. I mean, there's things that you can go for and some things that you're not, and communicate that to the other side and let them know, this is not negotiable. Now, if you want, you know, negotiate, we can, but this is not negotiable, and we can accept some of the things we do.
I like what Ben Franklin said, the older I get, the more, that's going in there. The more older I get, the more I doubt myself, and I'm willing to listen to other people and so on. And we should do that, and it's fair to do that. I've been wrong in some times when I was just sure that I was right. And I'm sure I'm right on everything right now. At least I have an opinion on everything. I used to have people call into the radio and say, you just think you're right about everything. You always think your opinions are right. And I said, that's what an opinion is called. Of course I think they're right. If I have an opinion on it, I think I'm right. But I do believe that I know I have been wrong in the past, and I'm probably wrong on some things right now and so on. So we have to be civil, and we have to be willing to compromise and so on. And yet, as you said, on principles, we never compromise on basic principles. There's certain things that are not negotiable. But if we can do that, we can articulate and be friends with people, and we have to, as we always say, agree to disagree without being disagreeable. It's the way we ought to. We're all children of God. We're all trying, and even the other side, whether it's the gay lesbian thing or the Muslim thing and so on. You spend some time over in Palestine, not Palestine, and you'll come to love the Palestinian people. You'll still hate their leaders because they're ungodly, damnable, mean sons of a gun and so on. But the people are the sweetest people on the earth, and so are the people in China. But the red Chinese leaders are ungodly, communist tyrants, and we need to be able to work with God's children.
You know, I give it out here, but I'm going to give you one last well-thought-out thought.
About the guns?
Government will only respect an educated and armed population. Armed without education is a mob. Educated without arms makes the population subjects, not citizens.
Yeah, and we can talk about civility all that we want and so on, but the bottom line is Mao Zedong was right. In government, power flows from the end of a gun, and government, as George Washington said, is not eloquence, it is force. It's a gun, a badge, and a uniform. And our founding fathers understood very clearly that an armed populace is the #1 deterrent to tyranny, and the #1, we have to stay. How they're ever going to get rid of the Second Amendment, I don't know. Done it just about everywhere else, it seems like now, but you got to get rid of America and national sovereignty to have world government. And you got to get rid of the U.S. Constitution. You got to get rid of the Second Amendment. And how they're going to do it, I don't know, but they're not going to give up on that because they have to do that to get us away from the rule of law.
Larry Smith.
Wait. No, he was here. He's been doing it for 10 minutes. You're next. He's next.
I just make a suggestion that we need to be proactive instead of reactive. And I'm going to what we were talking about earlier before you got here, that they're deputizing or to get involved with your sheriffs and like at the Tea Party meetings, whatever, and the new ones that are coming in, and make sure that what did you say they were getting that you work with them. He had groups that look out in the neighborhood and whatever, and that if we do get in a crisis, that he could deputize all of those.
And after you work with them, you're no longer an outsider. You're no longer a kook or anything. And they know who you are. You can trust your Bob.
This Saturday, Larry Smith at 8 o'clock at room 104 of TJC West is having an open carry for all the citizens that want to show up. It's going to be a 4-hour class at TJC West. Okay. So
I really admire Bob. I have never seen anyone who is so, on a daily basis, he drives me nuts. I mean, it just drives me crazy. He says, Tom, you need to be doing this, you need to do this. And I agree. If we can find a way to do it, we do need to be able to do that stuff. I admire it. I just got grandkids I haven't seen. I have one.
Yeah, and I've got debates I have to judge.
Exactly.
But anyway, the Van Zant County Sheriff has a precinct watch program. There's 120 guys on 4 precincts, so 30 per precinct, where they meet with the sheriff once a month. They meet every week or something to get together regularly, once a month. And So anyway,
There
they
are
are
things that we can
controlling
do.
burglaries during the daytime. And I told them, well, you know, you guys are watching the criminals. You ought to get it. You ought to also watch your electeds, those criminals.
Amen.
You know, and if they just showed up at the commissioner's court and the city council and the school district, they'd be controlling that crime.
Well, there are things we can do. You talk to Bob, he's got 24 things you can do this week, but there are things that we can do. And with what, we can't run faster than we're able, but we can do one little thing at a time and we can have some impact. And if all of us, we have to get out of our comfort zones. We do have families. We do have to support them. We do have to spend time with our wives first and our children, and that's the most important. But we also need to find a way. A lot of us watch a lot of TV, and
You don't have to
I'm
be
not
tied
saying
to
you
your
don't. I'm going to
TV.
watch Person of Interest tonight when I go home. I'm going to eat and I'm going to watch Person of Interest. I don't care how late it is. Yes, no.
I had asked you previous about it, and I think you gave a good lead in, if everybody's not real in a hurry to get home, about what can be done. I've been active politically for
I'm sorry, I had forgotten. Thank you.
many years, and I had come to the conclusion that it's a good versus evil. Definitely is. And God's word's been taken away from us, from our schoolhouse on. And through these battles, I've tried to formulate in my mind what is the best approach. And it's God's word. It's God's word. It comes down to God's word. And how do we re-establish that, especially in our schools? This is, and Bob came along and we petitioned the band. Can you get that up? Band's ISD. Okay, he's gonna try to work his deal. Wait until he gets his deal going again. But I petitioned the band ISD, which is yeah, you gotta get his microphone. Okay.
And this is long before we started this. He was doing
This
this.
is long before this. I'll get him to redo this. It's about 5 minutes. I took this book to the Van ISD and gave it to the superintendent and to all the school boards, asked them to read it, and I said, I was coming back to you. And this is my presentation to the Van School Board, and I'd encourage you to do that to your school boards, whatever school district you're in. You need to take a stand, and this not only is a way to introduce studying our Constitution, but it's putting God's Word back in our schools. And if you read this book, you know what I mean by putting God's Word back in.
So how many of those did you give to the school district?
I gave this year on Constitution Day, and that's another thing. How many of you aware the state law that the Constitution must be taught in our school districts September the 17th, or that week of September the 17th? How many of you knew that that's a state law? That is a state law that our school district must teach. So
This is a good way to.
on that, and this is a good way to do it. Go to your school boards and tell them, hey, you're required to do it, and here's a good way to do it. And
some of them will appreciate it, others may not, but some will.
that's right, but at least it's an act. All right, Bob can get his.
If I can, yeah, well,
He'll have it down the 10th week. No, we only meet 9 weeks though.
this is not the way it's supposed to be. But it's kludged together.
It's about 5 minutes.
Okay, let's try it now.
So how many did you hand out?
186. So each student studied in civics. Can you get it?
I'm gonna get to the main subject. You already got one, you've got one, Mike sent you one, you have one.
This is when you passed them out, right?
This is what I presented to the school board, and you can do much the same to your school board.
I don't know why it's not
He can't get
working.
it. He can't get it. But I'd encourage you to possibly do that, to get a group of citizens, go to your school board. You can get these things for $4 a piece. And you can raise money, you can put it in the hands of the children, and, you know, well, all of them brilliant? No, but maybe we'll make a difference.
Zeldin Nelson will do that. He'll do it for $4 a piece. And once a year, they have a scratch and dent sale. And I couldn't see the scratches or dents on them, but then you can get them for $2 or $2.50 a piece, you know, at that point. Otherwise, you gotta pay $15 or so, on Amazon. But he'll do that because he's been doing it for 20 years now, getting these out to hundreds of thousands of schools, over the nation. These and the movie and some other teaching materials and so on. You've got some group that you're trying to do what Doc has done here, he'll work with you. He'll subsidize it partially himself.
So they're reading
Zeldin
it,
Nelson is the head of the NCCS, National Center for Constitutional Studies, which was created originally by Cleon Skousen, who wrote the book here.
Whatever happened to the Taylor guy?
Pardon?
Was it Earl Taylor?
Earl Taylor is the chairman of the board right now of NCCS, has been for years.
And this other guy is who?
Zeldin Nelson owns he took over, it was
The publishing company?
having financial problems, and he bailed them out. He's a humble wheat farmer. If he was here, you can't hardly get him to talk. He's just as quiet as he can be. He's a sweet, humble man. It's just the truth. But he has spent tons of his own, and he won't accept any of the government subsidies for wheat. How in the world he competes against the other guys that are getting government subsidies? But somehow he's being blessed, and he subsidizes this with it. So he'll work with you. I mean, if he has to, he'll give you some. Okay. Next week, I haven't made it, but we're going to talk about two major things, even though they're sort of current events. We'll try to stay away from that. But I don't believe you can really understand the Constitution and what's happening in government and in the world without talking about the Federal Reserve here and the central banks of the world, and also the Bush doctrine,
speakers that
which
plug
is
into this.
offensive
And I have one
and
of those
undeclared
on
wars
the
that we've
so-
had since World War II, undeclared. We're going to talk about those things next week. For somebody.
I only do what I do.
Because it gives you the ability to, yeah, you're not plugging those speakers, that's the thing.
When I plug this HDMI in here, I don't have any volume until I plug something into here. So I need speakers that are better than the speakers that I have to plug into that.